Hmm? Is it really?
No, well, shit. We've dominated the Rangers, so why not?
You guys fish today?
I did not.
We got to beat the Twins to worry about the Rangers.
No, man, it's raining at my house.
I'm not real excited about it. Yeah. We seem like we might have a little bit of a delay here.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Yeah, something's weird.
Let me get everybody out, and we'll get back in again. Hold on a second. Let's see. Put you remove from stage. Remove from stage. All right, let's try this again. Hold on. All right, say something, Dean.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, say something, Caleb.
Hello, check 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Testes.
I don't know if there's still a delay or not, but it didn't seem so bad. Is that a Costa Rica hat?
No, it's Costa Del Mar.
Oh, Costa sunglasses.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. I think the pages were just loading because I was running late, so I just turned on my computer. So we might be good now.
Computer was running late.
Y'all heard that? Yeah, I was loading all the other pages. I got like a million tabs showing. So let me close a couple of those tabs and then we'll get started.
Yeah, words are coming in my ears as people's mouth are moving, so I think we're good.
It's the life of a star, man.
Words.
We got lots of words.
All right, here we go. There we go. All right, everything is still loading. I'm going to wait just 1 second while these other pages load, and then we'll get started. It should be without the delay. So I'm going to have a Tom's Hot Crackling while we're waiting.
Ka-cha.
I ate the pizza before y'all got here.
I had me some leftover country style ribs from last night.
Dang, did you put some OG sauce on them?
Some of them got OG and some of them got, I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called. It was all right. One of them was a mustard based thing.
Oh yeah. All right. So that sounds better. I think
we haven't had a TV since July. So me and Kate went to Walmart last night, got us a TV to watch the Astros on, and decided to barbecue something to celebrate it.
How you been watching them? Just on your phone?
Yeah. So a baseball buddy of mine has DirecTV, so he gave me the little login, and I'll watch it on my phone.
Oh, nice. All right. I think we're all loaded, so we will start here. And Scott's going to join us whenever Scott joins us. He's still at the Jetties. All right. Here we go.
He said he still had shrimp left over.
Podcast, of course. Got to have the Bite Me podcast every week. We record on Tuesdays live on YouTube. We post it on Tuesday nights wherever you get your podcast, and we really appreciate you guys joining us as always. John Lopez right here, Captain Dean Thomas right there, and so is Captain Caleb McCumber. And happy you guys are joining us on the live stream. And if you're not, you can subscribe to YouTube, which we're going to get to here in a second because we've got another couple of cool things cooking that we drummed up for the Bite Me listeners. But let's get right into it. Scott's going to be joining us. Cap Scott's going to be joining us ASAP, I think. He is still at the Jetties. We ended up recording this one a little earlier than usual because, we got to catch the end of that Astros game. for sure. Two big Astros fans in front of me. I am one as well. Caleb said something about Scott throwing that shrimp on the jetties. I don't know. We'll ask him about that at some point. But let's get into it. We're going to have lots of good topics here. And this one, the most interesting trips / people that you've ever taken out. I know we got some stories on that, and we might have to circle back to that once Scott joins us. Dean was talking about when good boats go bad. I can't wait to hear about that. Bait and fishing moving out of the channels and marshes. Is it happening? What's happening? And of course, several other topics as well. But what are you guys doing right now as far as fishing? Not right now, this minute. But Caleb, I'm going to start with you. What's been happening? We'll get into some of the specifics on these topics, and we're also going to get into what we got brewing via YouTube. But catch us up on, just so people that are wondering, I guess, fishing report, fishing opinion of what's happening right now. What's going on?
Now those equinox tides are in. The water's up in the grass. It's hot against there. There's fish starting to school. This is the fun time. We've been waiting all year. This is the good Lord's way of saying I'm real sorry about the past 4 months. Here, have a good time. The winds are down Friday, and I've already made the call. The winds down Friday, and me and some of my old redfish pards are going to go out and have a good time, record some video, and I think it's going to be everything that I hope it's going to be.
Dean?
Yeah, it's been good in my neighborhood. And yeah, absolutely pleasant. I fished all day yesterday, and I came in and I said I didn't crack a sweat all day. It was lovely. Overcast, little light breeze.
Oh.
My redfish really haven't started to school up over here. Crazy high tides still. They're singled out, but I mean, they're coming charging from 10 feet away, blowing up on top waters. They're in a really good mood. So yeah, did a couple days in the boat, did a nice kayak trip yesterday, beautiful conditions. And yeah, thank you that summer is over, man. This one was brutal. Looking forward.
It was absolutely brutal. And we got a little rain even mixed in, so that helped things. Yeah,
man.
All right, so let's start with this. Just a little bit of a go ahead.
Now, I was going to say the rain down here, doesn't affect us the way it does up on the upper coast. We don't have rivers and things that run into our bays. So, I mean, it can rain all it wants to, and the water stays, really beautiful. Even with the wind that we had over the weekend with the cold front, man, we still had crystal clear flats with all that wind.
All right, so let's get into a couple of things here with the podcast, just kind of updating listeners who weren't on the Facebook group page. By the way, we highly recommend that you join the Facebook group page. Just search Bite Me Fishing, and you'll find it and join it. Going on 10,000 strong there. And, of course, to subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get a podcast, you can find the Bite Me podcast and subscribe. But we got this going on right now. I'm always kind of my brain, as you guys know, goes 1,000 different directions at one time, and I'm always like, okay, how can we juice this up a little bit? How can we take it to another level? We want you listening and subscribing to the podcast. That's where you get the meatiest, so to speak, conversation. We answer your questions specifically, etc. But one thing we also want to do is visualize some of these things, and so what we started is what I'm calling Bite Me Short. And obviously play on words there, but Bite Me Shorts, little 3 to 5, maybe occasionally a little longer videos, minute videos that kind of illustrate things. I've posted 2 on this YouTube channel, 2 to start us off. One from Captain Scott about coon pops, another one from JT. Really good in-depth information on trolling motors and how troubleshooting and things you need to know, etc. And I think this is going to be really good. And I'm gonna wrestle in all the captains here to include like 3-minute videos with things that we have already recorded, probably about 8 or 9. And these videos are going to kind of enhance things. So I would highly recommend that you go ahead and subscribe. Those are going to be posted in between podcasts, probably like a Saturday and then a Monday and then a Sunday, the following Sunday or something like that, or Friday, just to kind of keep it rolling here. Now I know both you guys, Dean. I'm gonna start with you. Very, very in tune with the video, uh, you know, aspect of teaching and showing. We just want to keep them real quick. I actually saw a video you did, Dean, on the kayak. I guess you had your legs hanging over the side. You had a nice redfish on, and I thought, okay, that's perfect. Give me a minute of that and send it to me, and then I'll record, or you can record a little intro, and we'll cobble it together. This is the kind of stuff that I think is going to enhance things. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe you can think of one, Dean, that you've talked about, and you're like, man, I really wish I could show them what this is. Well, separate from the podcast, we can show people what you're talking about.
Oh man, I can make up anything, what you need. Now I have no, it's a cool idea. I mean, and we sit here and we talk about fishing and all the stuff we do. Nice to show a few examples of it live action occasionally as it's happening. I've done a lot of videos over the years, just try to be creative, doing some different angles, and just out of pure creativity. I hang around with other guys that do some great photography, so we're always trying to outdo each other with a cool angle or a cool shot. So yeah, I mean, we can add some commentary to go with that, or I don't know, we could do just action, or some explanations that go
it's an open palette. It's an absolutely open palette. Yeah. And Caleb, you're a master at this.
A lot of times, when you do those things, it is just pure creativity. You kind of see what you get at the end of it. It's not like action go and this is what we're going to end up with.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably have some bloopers to go with it too, man.
Yeah, we're gonna go. Is it Bill Dance or Jimmy Houston that has those big blooper reels? I'm sure we'll have several of those. I think it's Bill Dance. But Caleb, you're really good at this. I know you have other projects, and I don't mean to infringe, but a couple minutes here and there probably are going to be really good for our listeners, just to enhance the podcast experience, so to speak.
Is this your way of telling me you expected me to send something in this week and I didn't?
No.
Like
See, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. As we go, we'll do it. If you feel the urge, you do it.
When I saw Scott's video, I was like, cool, I'm off the hook for this week. I was like, we're done.
Check.
Yeah. Okay. Don't have to worry about Lopez bugging me this time. But no, it'll be cool.
It'd be a good time.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into some topics. I know you guys have got probably multiple stories. Don't be bashful. We're not constrained by time here. But this came up with kind of an off-air thing that we talked about. The most interesting is in air quotes, trips/people you've ever taken out. Now, I've had some interesting ones, but I know mine pale in comparison. Caleb, I'm going to start with you to some of the things that you've experienced. So when was the last time, or what's the most memorable time you got off the boat, you took a trip out, and you took a group out, whatever, and then they left, and you go, man, that was weird.
Well,
that was different.
Well, I've got a couple of stories.
Come on.
They all involve they all involve butt cheeks. All my stories involve butt cheeks. But let's
all right. Well, this is the
let's
butt
open this
segment of the show.
Let's ease into this segment and go ahead and review the fact that Delaney broke yet another boat this weekend. And last weekend we were talking about it, and she's in the comments like, "Oh no, what are y'all talking about?" Yeah.
Oh, this was in the tournament.
In the tournament, they still did pretty good. She won something, but
yeah.
Powerhead. I think Powerhead's gone. Something else is. I don't know. Scott was texting me at 2 a.m. just completely stoked that Delaney broke a boat.
The human banana.
Yep. We'll start calling her Lil Nanner.
That'll come up when the good boats go bad segment happens.
Oh, okay. We'll get to that. All right. So, I'm trying to think of a good example of mine. I don't go take, somewhat strangers out as much as you do, Caleb. So I'm curious, but I've had a few where I went exactly that. I went, well, that was an interesting trip.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, my customers are wild, dude, and they're wild in a good way. Every last stinking one of them. I can't say I have a single customer that doesn't just fit me to a T. I had some guys, I guess it was last year. Scott had just got done with his Indian summer rant on Facebook, and man, we were smoking fish. And next thing I know, these guys are stripped down, wearing nothing but a loincloth, and yelling Indian things while catching redfish. And then take a picture and post it. And I did. And boy, and then I had Miss LSU on my boat a couple of years ago. And I found out quite quickly that it was very important to Miss LSU to not have tan lines, which was awesome. No tip needed. I'm good. Thank you. then it wasn't. Seriously? It wasn't about. Yeah, and it wasn't about a day later.
We didn't see any pictures of that.
Some people got wives and stuff, man.
Yeah,
but then it wasn't a day or two later. They had hired me to fish for a couple of days, and they had brought their own boat, so they wanted to go do their own thing. And I think it was the next day, dude, and it was probably an hour before dark. And I get a call from them, and they have broke down their boat like almost all the way to Sargent. And she says, if you come pick me up or you come give us a tow in, you'll enjoy the scenery as you're pulling up. And I ran a boat. I burned 5 gallons a mile getting down there before dark, sir.
Nobody's going to blame you for that one.
No.
No one is going to blame you for that one. Well, that one is in a good way. It was kind of like, well, that was interesting. Sometimes you get somewhere you're like, well, I don't know about that. Dane, you got any come to mind?
Well, the most, I got a couple for sure. A real kind of funny one was just like last week. I had these guys on the boat, and the radio was playing, and dude up on the front determined that the rhythm of the music helped him walk the topwater. And he stood up there for 6 hours and danced to the music. And I thought it was going to be a little novelty item. Hey, man, I'll do this for a minute. But no, I mean, he was convinced that it helped him catch fish. And yeah, man, he's still doing it. I mean,
was the song Mary Had a Little Lamb? Because people always say that's how you work the top water.
So they would actually take the song lyrics and turn it into their own little fishing thing. And they, one of them was the, man, I don't know who it is, but it's so easy to catch a fish. He's like, it's so easy to fall in love song.
Yeah,
well, they changed it to it's so easy to catch a fish. And they sang that shit until I was like, can we change the channel? Because y'all got a channel changer. That song was so stuck in my head that it just didn't quit. But I was like, that's weird, but whatever it takes, catch fish. But one of the, I have some challenging aspects to guiding. One of the craziest ones was this grandma hired me to take her grandkids, and they were in their 20s, so they weren't like little children. They wanted them to go on a kayak trip. So it was 2 couples. And when we were out there loading up, it was like new to the whole thing. And as we were taking off, I could tell they really weren't into it. And it was kind of weird. I was like, we're going to do this. Are y'all into it? And so I heard one of the girls say to the guy told his girlfriend, he was like, I didn't choose this, or I didn't sign up for this. I forget exactly what the words were, but I was like, when we were taking off, I was like, man, this is going to be a long day. And it turned out to be a very long day. We got out there.
And I was right.
One of the, I couldn't get them far enough away from the shoreline. They threw lures in the bushes and tangled up all day long. It's like all of this water behind you, miles and miles of water. And they just continually threw up in the bush, and not like at the edge of the mangroves. They were throwing 10 feet up in the trees. It was crazy. And then one of the girls ended up rolling out of her kayak. She fell out of it. and was flailing around.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty crazy. But yeah, that was one of those days where people really weren't prepared for what they were going to attempt, but it wasn't their idea. And they showed up and they're like, we'll try this.
Yeah.
And it was a bad idea.
You know, one thing, Caleb, that of the many, but one thing that really I would never want to be a professional guide that has always kind of been in the back of my head is like people trying to stiff you or discounts and or not, you know, I know it's a very sensitive topic, but boy, that would be so tough for me to like, hey man, you know, we did the trip, we agreed in advance. There's got to be some of those that are just make you frustrated until you can get back on a good trip.
Man, I've had the ones where, you know, they know what you charge and they hand you a wad of cash and you put it in your pocket and then you get home and it's 100, 150, $50, whatever light. And that's always annoying. And, you know, the call is, are they good repeat customers or are they they just one and done? The one and done will give a call. The repeat customers, I got my eye on you next time. And I'm probably going to jack with you about it more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Dean?
Man, the vast majority are easy going. You know, most of them understand the fishing game. The one thing that if they spend a day on the water with me, they're going to know we worked hard. You know, if the fishing is tough, we're going to stay longer. I mean, I'm going to keep going. We're going to hit spot after spot. I've never had anybody, you know, complain to me about the effort. You know, the results are what they're going to be. But, you know, the vast majority of the people understand the game. But then you have one-timers, you know, that they've never been fishing. They come down, they expect the fish to be sitting there with their mouth open, you know, and that just ain't the reality of what goes on out there. But, you know, it's an interesting game that we play out there. It's a challenge, and you never know who's going to walk in the door. I mean, when you got
that's another thing. Yeah,
you do 200 plus trips a year, you're going to have a huge variety of personalities on the boat.
See, and that's where I'm lucky that I've been in the game long enough, and I'm not in a tourist destination like Dean is, where I might run 2 new people a year. Everybody else, I know them. We know where we're at. If they're coming back, obviously it worked out the first time between us, right? I've had very few that only came once. But man, Pat's gonna be mad at me here. But whenever I pick up the phone and I start catching those vibes here, you know, that first 2 or 3 minutes of talking, all of a sudden I got pretty busy. But I've got a buddy that probably has some openings.
Yeah. Oh, Pat, he'll put up with you.
I got the guy for you. Oh, what? You'll have 7 people? I got it. Man, my buddy Nick got a 26-foot boat. Let me give you his number.
Again, I'm not even in the same hemisphere as you guys, but I've donated trips here and there. And the one that came to mind as you're talking, Dean, is I had one that I was postponed again. So I got it. They wanted to fish hell or high water. And they paid a good amount of money to fish with me at a charity auction. And I called them a couple of days before. It doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good. It doesn't. This was when I was in Matagorda. And then I called them the day before. I said, are you guys coming down? Because this is going to be rough and it's going to be a west wind. It's going to be chocolate. And Caleb, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so they said, nope. We want to come fishing. I said, all right, just as long as you guys know up front. And I'm thinking, you know, a couple of guys like us, you know, fishermen, they're willing to grind, maybe wade, find a little area. No, it was about a 70-year-old man and 2 granddaughters. 2 granddaughters that were about 8 and 10 years old. Didn't tell me. So or else I'd have gotten bait and just gotten in Mitchell's Cut and, you know, sat there for 5-6 hours or whatever. Nope. They wanted to go and me teach them artificials in a west wind with 2-foot waves coming every 3 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever it was. And there was a little bit of water about 100 yards long that looked relatively decent. And these poor girls got the hell kicked out of them. They had a miserable time. I mean, just miserable. And I remember coming back to the dock, and the old guy was nice about it. Well, it didn't work out. I was like, nah, no, it didn't. no, it didn't. Well, I got back to the dock, and I just felt horrible, man. I mean, it just horrible. I told them both. I told the grandpa, I said, listen, just call me back. I'll call you when it's a good day. We'll just go fishing again. Don't worry about anything, and it was just awful. Those are the ones that just kick your butt. It totally sideswiped by who I was going to be fishing with.
Those are just little Delaney's in the making right there. That's where Delaney came from. She thinks this is normal.
Those poor girls.
It's part of the game, though. And I whenever we're faced with those kind of conditions, when I know it's going to be tough, I tell people how it's going to be. I tell them it's like the wind's going to blow. It's going to suck. We're not going to catch any fish. And they're like, woo, woo, let's go, man. It's going to be awesome. And, we go give it our best shot. But if it's going to be horrible and I can reschedule, I offer that. But if we have people that are in town and it's their one day, their one shot, we go do it.
Man, that's just nuts. All right, Dean. When good boats go bad, I know you got a story you've been wanting to share. This topic is also known as the Delaney, the human banana. When good boats go bad, what happened?
Man, I mean, there's a lot of those stories, things break, things happen. So even on my boat lately, I had a couple of good ones. The helm, the power steering, it's got a check valve. It turned one way, check valve got stuck, wouldn't turn back the other way. So, that was one. Troll motor fried on me. We told everybody about that one. Yeah. But the good one this past weekend, my buddy, that docks next to me at the marina, and he's got a relatively new boat. He actually, man, he owns a marine shop, which is kind of crazy. He has access to every part in the world that he's there every day. And he almost sunk his boat just this past weekend. Man. So there was he was pumping water into the live well, and there was this little plastic check valve that was in the line. And so as the plastic was in the hull, bouncing on waves for so much time, it actually cracked that piece of plastic valve. So when he turned on the bait well, instead of pumping water into the bait well, he was pumping it into the bilge of his boat. And it was windy, it was rough, and you couldn't hear those little details. You couldn't hear water running inside. And then all of a sudden he noticed that his boat was leaning over a little awkwardly to one side. And whenever he unscrewed the cover to look inside, water gushed out of it like a little artesian well. It had so much water in it. And he actually had to run and beach his boat and park it on the shoreline, plug everything up, and then run the bilge out. He said he pumped like about 40 gallons of water from the inside of the boat. So, I mean, things go wrong. It doesn't matter how new it is. We run out to these, faraway places, and you can find yourself stranded on a lonely sandbar at times.
Caleb, when good boats go bad, man, I wonder if you have any stories about this whatsoever.
Propellers fall off.
Yeah.
Most of the bad stuff that happened in my boat involves driving down a freeway, but maybe it's the bad customers and the bad boat stuff. I have ability to repress these things and not remember them. I don't have a whole lot of terrible boat stories. I have boats that tend to lose control and drive up on the land, and it's
all by themselves.
I've had that happen a couple. I mean, I think I'm at 3 times now in my career of the boat steering going out, and that's how I ended up with grass under me. But yeah, no, I've been really lucky with boats. I really have. Nothing too terrible. I've had trolling motors mess up. There was a tournament once where I had to fix a trolling motor using a fillet knife and a pair of scissors, and I'm talking like disassemble it, put the belt back on the Ulterra shaft thing, and rewire it coming out of the boat with a fillet knife and a pair of scissors. And we did pull that off.
You're MacGyver, man.
You have a sewing kit on your boat?
I'm telling you, we did. I'm telling you. And I don't even know where the knife come from because not only have I never used cut mullet, even when I tried to use it, I've never caught anything on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you have a knife on your boat.
That's because you didn't put it under a popping cork. You're doing it all
That's
wrong.
right.
I'm defending myself from manatees and otters with that knife. It has nothing to do with fishing.
By the way, talking about these bite me shorts, if you don't think I'm going to do one myself, it's mostly going to be experts and you guys. But if you don't think I'm going to do one on myself on all the ins and outs of a popping cork, you got another thing coming. you got another. I might put that one out next week. We'll figure that one out. All the things you can do with a popping cork. Take that, guys.
I'm looking forward to that. I found a popping cork floating out there. It was just
John's
randomly
been here.
So, well, I swung by there and picked it up. I picked it up and I was like, man, I think I'm going to need this.
You are.
It couldn't have been better timing.
Yeah. By the way, Caleb, I saw Daniel selling his boat.
He is. The boat that we used all season. It's I'll tell you what, that thing will get up in nothing. And the fuel mileage on it just blows my mind. It's got 2 60-gallon fuel cells on it. And one of them is hooked up to the gauge. The other one's just an extra tank. And we always fill up the one that isn't hooked up and run that one out first. And about 3 or 4 days, and they're running around and looking for redfish, I'll start waiting for it to sputter. And it gets good mileage. It's a nice boat. I think he said it has 150 hours on it, 300 Merc. It's a redfish finding machine. I'll give it that.
Man, that's pretty nice. I actually got a couple of guys looking at my Warrior as well. I think we might get that sold this week at some point. So that'll be good. And I'm going to have to get into that old General that Chet wants me to get in. All right, you guys open the show with this when I asked you how you guys are fishing. Are the bait moving? Are the fish moving? Channels, marshes, backwaters. How much of a start have we gotten here, Dean?
There's so much high tide out there right now, you can't even see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of mullet. What we've had that's been pretty obvious is the mullet migration that's going down the surf, down the shoreline. Mullet are streaming out the jetties. It's like a never-ending river of mullet going through the surf. But I mean, I've seen a lot of life in the water. Everything has perked up, and it's crazy because the air temperature is really nice. And I mean, I had a hoodie on the other day. I mean,
I saw that.
It was actually hoodie weather above the water. And the fish that we landed, when we pick them up, they're still warm. I mean, the water is still like 83 degrees. So
it's still that high?
Yeah. Yeah. As different it is above the water, it hasn't had that many days to change the water temperature yet. It's just the very first cold front. And it's pretty warm out there today. I mean, it's not exactly cool. The wind has kind of shifted around from the east to where it's just muggy again. So as excited as we are about the air temperature, the water temperature hasn't really dropped. Another cold front coming this weekend is definitely going to push it in that direction. But, we're getting excited, but we may be a little premature on all of that.
Yeah, and Caleb, I saw you nodding your head, so I'm not going to ask you to just reiterate what Dean was talking. But what does it tell you as far as like if the bait is moving, if the mullet is on the beach front, and you had to go catch some fish today, is it telling you to go one way or another?
Man, in the words of the great John Bon Jovi, "Whoa, oh, we are halfway there." And
yeah.
I've seen 79 in a couple places up here. I saw 79 in Louisiana. And yes, we've still got the great big tides, but that's what's going back and getting all up in that grass and letting all those little critters hatch and get all happy, and then they get sucked out and eaten and their lives destroyed. But right now, it's the part where if I'm out fishing right now, I am in that I'm waiting where the water is a foot or two into the grass, foot or two deep at the grass. And along the edge of that grass, if you watch it, you'll see flounder blowing up stuff in the grass, redfish cruising.
Look at you, flounder fisherman.
And so
I said I see them. I didn't see I catch them.
and when you're comparing those notes, the marsh, Matagorda North, very different than the flats of South Texas.
Yep.
I've always, me and Scott have always, compared how that happens up there. And down here, it is like 2 months later. It is way later behind those things that start happening in really a short distance. It's not that far. Matagorda North, the tides get pushed out by the north wind. The tides stack up down here on a north wind. You don't get the drops with these fronts down here like you do in the marsh. So very different ecosystem, and the timing is a little bit different on those.
Well, that's important for our listeners to know. What you just said, I don't want to just completely gloss over that after you say it, because
when we hit Thanksgiving and the 1st of December is when things just erupt into madness, just like what Caleb was just describing will take place up there. The little fishies swim out to their demise.
Caleb has that little bleep-eating grin on his face.
Marauding schools of reds start to gather up much later down here than they do on the northern part of the coast.
Caleb, you going to share with the class?
I'm reading a comment over here, and I guess they were going back to describe the idiots you've had on your boat, and somebody said you should have interviewed Steve for that segment.
Oh, yeah.
It made me laugh. And it made me think of a guy. It was this time of year last year, and there were schools of redfish everywhere. And if you don't think Steve recognizes that redfish are doing some cool stuff and he's pumped, you're wrong. And there's schools of redfish everywhere. And I've got a picture of it. The dude is sitting on the front of my boat, crisscross applesauce Indian style, just kind of casting about 8 feet and reeling back in. And Steve is standing beside him, looking at him like, what in the hell are you doing right now?
You big dummy.
And I'm just sitting there thinking of all the ignorant stuff that Steve has witnessed in the 4.5 years of his life on my boat.
Man, fishing with Steve on the boat is a little unnerving. He's awesome. He is absolutely, but he's judgmental. And when you hang, the thing that gets me is when you hang your bait, like you reel in and you're talking to somebody, and your bait's kind of hanging over the water on the side of the boat. About 100 times out of 100, I think he's going to jump in after that son of a gun. He just looks at it like he's about to jump after it.
He absolutely will not jump in after it. He absolutely will not bite it. He will not touch it, but he will look at you and start chirping at you. Like if that thing in the water, we ain't catching nothing.
Yeah.
Steve has this thing. Popping cork is his gig. Like he doesn't need to fish with you because you're going to get bit. And I'll tell you why. If you've got a popping cork, Steve is instantly just like absolutely stoked. And
see there, he knows.
Yeah. The dog recognizes. And if you reel it in and it's sitting there hanging above the water and you go to talking to me or something and screwing around, he's going to chirp at you. He's going to stand in front of you. He's going to chirp at you 2 or 3 times. I've watched this happen multiple times. This happened to Daniel. It's happened to multiple people. He'll chirp at you 2 or 3 times. And if you don't cast that thing, he'll walk around behind you and he will open his mouth about 36 inches wide and just bite you in the back of the leg. I watched this happen.
Gear.
You're getting dog bit if you don't keep that thing in the water.
See, Steve knows. Steve knows. If you don't believe me, you can believe Steve. And by the way, I've spent my entire fishing career living on a prayer. But that's just me. That's just me. All right. How about a listener question here? We talked about the bait. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to that real quick, Dean, because there was something I was thinking about before we move on to the next topic. And that is, you talk about the mullet on the beachfront. That tells me bull reds. That tells me, redfish on the beachfront. And I know our listeners, if they weren't thinking about it, they want to know about it. Like, is that kicking up?
That is definitely, yeah. Now that takes place. The timing of that is the moon and the tides trigger all of that. And so right as we get past this super moon that we had in about probably another week or so, that tide's going to start pulling out. And yes, the bull reds will be there. We'll have those schools up on the surface at the Port A jetties. You can walk down the rocks. You can throw a big 3/4 ounce spoon from the rocks and catch them. You can drift it. Yes, there's going to be a lot of bulls. What's tough to watch, though, man, there is so much attrition out there. I watch people kill those fish.
That's
too
the
much.
thing, yeah.
The ones that come up from the deep, even 30 feet in the jetties, they swell up or they blow up from the decompression. You have to pop their little bladder, and you will see. I mean, they're a victim of their own aggression. Those fish are feeding, they're hitting everything, and there are a lot of people catching them, and a lot of big bulls do die due to mishandling. But it is the season.
Yeah.
If I can remember, I have a video on how to venom. I'll put it on the Bite Me Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's on a snapper, but it's the same idea, right? You get the schools, and then you get a lot of those light north. I don't know what lays your surf down, Dean. I'd assume maybe a west wind, but up here you get those light north 5 mile an hour days for 2 or 3 days straight. That'll get the surf knocked down a little bit for us, and it's got the tarpon kind of going a little bit nuts right now too. All the big fish that are near shore fish are going to be there.
So when you're throwing a spoon and you're hitting them up on the surface, they don't have that problem. They release very well. It's the ones that are caught on the bottom, with a big old 1 ounce weight that puts a chunk down on the bottom. The ones that are getting pulled up from the depths are the ones that blow up. But, we catch them on the surface, we catch them schooling, and then those guys release very well.
And that's irrespective of what we were talking about with the high tides and maybe being a little behind mid coast and all that. They're going to be on the surf right now anyway, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is from a listener talking about winds and tides colliding. I know we've mentioned this here and there over the last couple of years on the podcast, but let's talk. Dane, I'll start with you on this. At what speed does the wind overcome the tide created by the moon? Obviously, it depends on where the moon is, but if there's a general rule, I'd love to be made aware. Wind versus tide. This is another one of those age-old questions, and we've all experienced it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the number would be, but you can have a slack tide day where the wind is blowing and it creates current and it creates a whole new environment out there that will turn them on. We actually had that conversation Saturday when the cold front blew in. We had super high tide, really wasn't flowing, standing most of the day, but if it hits 30, it creates current for sure. I mean, 20 and up is always going to override the tide. I mean,
and so what do you do?
You just keep fishing, keep chunking. You throw bigger lures that make more noise. A lot of those are going to be concealed in the waves. But I mean, as tough as challenging as the wind makes it on those days when it's blowing 20 plus, it does create a better fishing environment. It creates current. We had so many days during the last 2 months of summer that were just slick as glass.
Yeah.
We were on the troll motor if we wanted the boat to move. And, down here on my flats, we drift miles and miles of grass beds. We set up crazy long drifts, and every cast is a new potential. Whenever you're kind of stuck on the troll motor, it puts everything in super slow motion.
Yeah.
But the fish can see the boat. They can see the lure. They get very suspicious when they're singled out. When you have one fish, it's a very difficult fish to catch. But you let that wind start blowing, it conceals the lure a little better, and it makes a current. They tend to get in a better mood. So, I mean, if I had to pick one, I would probably say around 18 miles an hour is when the wind overrides the tide issues and the tide factor.
Yeah. And so, Caleb, I know we're not talking about necessarily wade fishing, But if you're out drifting, if you're out doing something else, how do you play it with your boat? I mean, how do you play where you're going to be? In terms of wind and tide.
So I'm pretty sure Abreu just hit a grand slam on the top of the first.
Yeah,
I,
it's 4-0.
I didn't hear anything Dean said.
Yeah,
is
Well,
that that's okay, right?
Right.
Oh boy, you got a big
John's
TV
head
over there.
swiveling.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Carrie brought me a note.
There
Yeah.
you got the note.
I got the 50-inch TV in my office, man. You think this is an amateur hour? What are we doing here?
Almost like you're a sportscaster or something. You should look into doing that.
Yeah.
How do
I had an extra big TV when we moved to this house. I said, I know exactly where I'm gonna put that.
how do I position my boat in heavy wind?
Yeah, versus that's going against a tide.
Versus this going against the tide.
We'll catch you up, Caleb.
All right, yeah. Sure. Thank you, guys. 4 or 5 drift socks.
Yeah.
No, I have to deal with this quite often this time of year. I really do. And because the drifting for trout is pretty awesome in the fall. And I run into a lot of that where it's been a front coming through or something like that. And my first move is always positioning myself in the bay system where it works for me. In Matagorda, for instance, I'm going to be up against the north shoreline or the west shoreline or the south shoreline. That's my first priority. And whenever I know that it's going to be windy, and then from there, that's where I adjust with how I'm drifting with the wind and all of that. But the first priority is just finding where you can get out of the chop and out of the dirty water. And believe it or not, I've been in the marsh a lot of times where it's blowing pretty good, but I've got good tall grass around me. And for whatever reason, the grass seems to knock the wind down some for me. So I try to use the environment and then adjust the wind from there, whether it be drift socks or whatever it is.
What about that for you, Dean? Because I know this is one of your go-tos on your boat when you're drifting, and all of a sudden you got one force going one way, one force going the other.
Well, if the wind is always going to be the deciding factor, you're not going to have current that's going to overtake that wind. I mean, it's not going to park you. It's not going to flow like a river per se. But if I would have had 4 drift socks, I would have had them out this past weekend. We did our best to slow it down. On our flats, I mean, when the wind's blowing like that, I just pick an area where I have the longest drift in front of me. But then you have to have the right depth underneath you. You can't do that in really deep water. Especially in those waves. I mean, you hit the deep water and it's going to be quite uncomfortable to stand there and try to do that. And then the wind direction, you got to have it blowing long ways down those flats, or you're just going to drift and pick up and run back. I mean, some days you just have to work with the conditions you get. But we're pretty fortunate down here. I mean, when the wind cranks like that, it tends to be better fishing for us.
And you can find some areas that you're not getting killed.
Yeah. I mean, if you have 5 miles of water with grass beds that are, 18 inches to 2 feet deep, that's beautiful drifting for the duration of that drift. And every single cast has potential for the best fish of the day.
Yeah, and certainly you got to have more than one drift sock, but that's exactly where that's why I was nodding my head. If it's long, if it's tide versus a strong wind, first of all, you're probably going to be blind casting, and so you just make the longest drifts that you can.
One thing that I deploy, especially red fishing, and it'd work where down there where Dean is. We just don't have those big expansive flats up here. But I have a lot of them in Louisiana, and I will use the heck out of some power poles and move 30, 40 feet, set it down, fish, move 40, 50 feet.
That's my move too. You've heard me talk about it. Hopscotch. I call it hopscotch fishing.
And that we do that also, where you just park it, you cover up that area as best you can, pick up the pole, drift about the distance that you were casting, park at the end there. And it's just a very methodical way to hit every spot.
I've been doing that for years, even with an old anchor. Just kind of sliding it in, stopping, cast, slide it out.
That's just work right there, man. That's
yeah, but I was
labor.
younger.
That's labor intensive.
I was younger back then. And that the other thing about that, Caleb, is generally speaking, when you stop your boat, as Dean was talking about earlier, fish seeing the boat, you want to be able to cast further, but when it's windy like that and you're stopping and hopscotching, I don't think that's necessarily as much the case. I mean, you still try, and you still can because the wind's at your back, but it's not necessarily as important.
I'm trying to get away from the boat in situations like that because of the noise of the hole slap and going up. Like
more than, yeah.
I'm always in a cat style boat, so it makes all kinds of racket whenever the waves start getting up those tunnels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But even when it's not windy on a partly cloudy day, especially on tournament day, if a cloud covers the sun, I'll power pull down and just fish until that cloud gets off that sun and then get going again.
Yeah.
Try not to miss anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so this is a listener question, and I thought this is going to be a good one for our guys. And we're all fishing mostly out of boats now, but there's a lot of our listeners, and we get questions about this occasionally. Can you guys talk about, fishing from the shoreline, fishing from channel, from the side of a channel, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a question, and I'm going to start with Caleb on this one. If you had to drive somewhere to fish a shoreline or beachfront today, where would you go? And this is for our listeners that maybe are looking in those terms this time of year. Like you can't turn the key on your boat. You got to put your poles in your truck, drive somewhere, and catch a fish.
Man, it's kind of a cheap answer right now because of what we just talked about, but a set of jetties somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
Port A jetties, some long jetties somewhere. That'd be pretty spicy now and in the near future.
No, I think that's good because you probably cover more water too. You can go up and down the jetties. You can pick a protected side or whatever. Dean, you have an answer for this?
No, same answer. I mean, Port A jetties has so many options. You can walk the rocks and fish. You can go down the beach. It's easy driving. It's easy is the best way to describe that. And there's, so much opportunity. There's, you can look up and down, park your truck, step out, fish, jump back in, go a couple miles, back to the rocks. It's all minutes within each other. So there's so much. And then if you want to get really adventurous, you jump on the jetty boat that they will take you to the other side, which is, uninhabited St. Joe Island. That little corner pocket is always protected. Beautiful water there, small surf. And there's always going to be one side of that jetty that is inviting, or one side of that shoreline is going to be good. So Port A is easy, man. It's got a lot of opportunity.
And if the fishing sucks, the chicks that are still out in their bikinis at the beach, they have the attitude you're looking for.
Even in the cold weather, they still trying to get them tan lines.
Yeah.
They're there. They got to try.
Go down to the pizza joint for the first time in 4 months. The line won't be 3 hours long.
Exactly. And when you're on that beach, you're never more than 10 minutes from the Whataburger or whatever
That's what I'm saying.
Civilization is 2 blocks away.
One other thing that's tough these days, and I feel bad for people that that want to use their truck. You can always find some places to fish, Dean, but man, there are fewer and far further between right now. I used to be able to go to any number of bay systems around here, and you can find a place where you can just park and maybe meander to a shoreline, start wade fishing and all that. It's a different animal now.
Well, a lot of those got houses on them now, or neighborhoods that have developed, and they kind of frown upon people parking in their in their neighborhoods and walking down. But yeah, those places aren't as easy. People come down for fishing trips and they ask me all the time, it's like, I'm going to be here the day before. Is there some place that I can go walk in and wade? And other than, Port A and those areas we just talked about, there's really not any easy public access unless you go to a pier, is about the only option.
Well, Caleb, my thing is back in our area and my old area, your area in Matagorda, Get a 4-wheel drive truck, and you can get on that backside of East Matagorda pretty easily.
Yeah, you can get stuck-er.
Yeah.
With
No, there's definite go times and no times back there. Definite ones, because believe it or not, I've dove hunted more over there than I have fished over there.
Yeah.
And so I've been down several of those roads.
There's some hardcore dudes, man. I'll be on my boat on that South Shoreline in East Matagorda. I'm like, how'd that guy get here?
Yep.
I mean, they go. They go in some thick stuff.
Well, Delaney would be the leading expert on that. Her and Sean used to drive in over there on that backside quite a bit. But like I said, there's definitely go times and no times for sure.
Y'all talking about that 3-mile pass down the Matagorda beach?
Oh, there's several of them. There, you can go all the way
coming from the Matagorda side. You can drive.
Yeah, you can go all the way past
the mouth of the river.
Yeah.
I've
so
done
y'all
it
might
once.
not know this about me, but when I was 18 years old, I had a fish camp in Matagorda. Was the first thing I bought. So I don't know, when I was like 1986, I bought that place. And back then, Matagorda was this faraway edge of the civilization.
Oh yeah.
And we used to go down and drive down that beach. But then there were no cell phones. You couldn't call somebody if you wanted to.
Exactly. You were stuck.
And I know little young, wet behind the ears, Caleb don't even remember a time when there weren't cell phones.
Yeah, easy there, chap. Easy. I had my driver's license when the first bag phone came out. Okay, buddy.
The
Back
big
in
brick
my
one.
day, we didn't have them things. No, man, but that place was untapped.
Whenever I first started going to Matagorda, it was still, you might see 1 or 2 cars drive through town any given evening. On Wednesday, you'd see 5 boats. You knew all 5 of them. On a weekend, you'd see 10 or 15, and you knew 8 of them. We used to play a drinking game. We'd sit my buddy had a house down there, and we'd shoot a couple of shots off up in the air, and we'd take bets on how long it'd take a cop to even show up. And most of the time they didn't. And if they did, it was like an hour. They just come rolling down the road where somebody had called it in. Matagorda was, I can't imagine it in the 80s or whatever, because it was awesome.
It was at the end of St. Mary's Street. You went straight into town and took a right over the levee. It was right on the dead end, had a little a trailer house with a floating pier. And I owned that place.
Did Tolosic buy that from you?
Right, he was right next door to me. Bill Tolosic.
The degree I got in college was Tolosic's nephew was my roommate. And whenever you came over the levee, and if you drove straight down the road and ran straight into the house right in front of that was the house that I grew up and learned Matagorda out of. I skipped about every class in college, but we walked every inch of Matagorda Bay floundering and stuff at night. Yeah. That's where I learned Matagorda from.
So Bill Tolosic was my next door neighbor.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I sold that place in 97. Whenever I relocated to Aransas Pass.
I sit here and laugh at all the same things me and you probably did sitting on that porch looking at fish at night.
Well, it's funny because I was sitting here doing the math. I started fishing Matagorda, East Matagorda, in 1987 because I graduated from A&M in 84, and then I worked in San Antonio for a couple of years, and I got here. I started fishing in 87, so we were probably all 3 on the water at the same time at one point.
Well, I'm not that old, but yeah.
No, I know, but at least Dean and I, were. That's for sure. Bitch.
Take that.
That should be the next shirt, by the way.
We all got real serious, and now we're laughing again because Javier got out of a jam there in the first inning.
Yeah, Correa struck out Correa with 2 men
boy.
on. How about that? Take that, Correa. I'm not going to call you a bad name. All right. What would Caleb do? What would Dean do? Man, I was looking at this. You guys are talking about Friday, and I'm like, of course Friday is going to be good because Saturday, at least what I was looking at, Caleb, I'll start with you, was pretty breezy on Saturday. But Friday you say is going to be good. What would you do? Let's talk about Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Friday, I'm going out and I'm not waiting on Friday, although waiting would work just fine. I'm going out and cruising grass lines. Me and my buddy Taylor, we're going to go shoot some YouTube videos and mess around and do that. I think it's going to be great. Saturday, you couldn't pay me to be on the water Saturday. Not going to happen. So what would Caleb do? Not fish Saturday. But Friday probably be pretty decent. It's a great time of year to wade. It's a great time of year to drift deeper shell. It's a great time of year to stalk grass lines. I mean, from now until Christmas, it's open season, man. Do whatever makes you happy, and it'll probably work out.
Yeah, and Dean, I've talked about this on the podcast already a couple of times. I'm planning on taking the family out to Ransom Island, one of the islands, out there in Aransas. Find an island somewhere to watch the solar eclipse. But man, I might be beating up my own family. I'm seeing 30. I'm seeing 35.
You might want to watch that from the porch over there.
And drive to the jetties or something.
Set up some lawn chairs out there amongst the oak trees.
Yeah.
And
because it's going to be like legit wind.
And it's hard to trust the weatherman that far out. They scared the crap out of everybody last week, and it really was not as treacherous as predicted. So, you plan for the worst, hope for the best. But what Dean is going to do is he's going to catch a whole bunch of fish on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then probably going to watch the eclipse from the porch on Saturday.
Yeah. But what would you do? What are you looking at?
The sun comes, the clouds move away and we can actually see it. Wouldn't it be just the total kick in the ass to have like the event of your lifetime happening right above the clouds and you can't see it?
And you can't see it. But what about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Like your tactics. I know it's kind of wide open right now, but what would you be doing if you were one of our listeners?
Just like Caleb said, man, choose your favorite. There's so many options right now. If you want to go to the beach, the winds are going to be light. Surf's going to be beautiful. Drift in the flats. I've had some great kayak. I kayaked the last 2 days, and man, those reds are back in those lakes. So during most of the summer, all of our little corners, like especially Lighthouse Lakes, BNR, you could cook a fish out there. I mean, it was very, very difficult. The redfish are back in them corner pockets and those little coves that see very few boats. I mean, when the tide is this high, it does give access to a lot of skiffs. There's Poland skiffs out there. Those dudes and their goofy little boats tend to invade my favorite goofy fishing little spots.
Boats.
Those silly little boats with the bubble makers on them and their push poles and such. But if the tide does get pushed out or drop out a little bit, the Lighthouse Lakes and BNR and some of those others, I mean, they become kayak only. It eliminates a lot of people from those areas. So, kayaking, great option. Drifting, man, if you like the classic speckled trout spots, those drop-offs, around Lydian Channel, Quarantine Shoreline, outside of Ransom and Dagger. I mean, you could throw the magic dart at the map right now, and wherever it hits, it's probably going to be a pretty good shot this week.
Well, that's good to know, as long as the winds are better off. But we'll see about that. All right. So we always remind people where to contact you, to contact you guys if they want to book a trip. I know I'll be going out with you here in the next week or so, Dean, with one of our listeners. But that they can reach you out on all your social media via the group page or your Instagram. Your Instagram or whatever. Facebook.
Any of those messenger things. So
same thing with
10
Caleb.
days.
I think my fall's pretty well spoken for, but I'll be posting stuff on the Cap Caleb TV Facebook page if I get some openings and we're ready to go.
All right, and I haven't mentioned, and we need to, allstateroofs.com. How's that going for you?
We're busy. We're busy. I have to. I think I got 3 I have to get scheduled and put on next week. It's busy stuff. But go follow the Cap Caleb TV page, and that'll get you there. If you're a Bite Me Facebooker, you have time to follow Cap Caleb TV too.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you a lot as always, and obviously appreciate everybody listening here on the live YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can find the link on the Bite Me page. I'll be out there somewhere, probably landlocked, but we're going to have a good time. Catch them up. Have a good time. Let's go Astros. We'll talk to you next time.